I want to thank everyone for being here today and appreciate your patience. It's that time of the year. Members are running bills, running around everywhere, and stay organized. Madam Clerk, if you go ahead and we can take the roll. Members. Okay. All right. Madam Clerk, if you take the roll.
Mr. Chair, you have 15 members present. You have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. Members, any personal orders or announcements before we begin? I have Representative Eldridge on the list, and I'll get.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honored to have with me here in the audience today both sheriffs. J.J. Harville's in the back room back there, in the back of the room from Granger County, and Chad Mullins is up here in the front, and both of their chief deputies are here with them, and we're just make them feel welcome.
Shirley Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also have my sheriff from Dixon County, Sheriff Tim Eads. If everybody would make him welcome. And
Representative Scarborough. Childhood friend George Mashingill's on the front row this morning. We're going to hear from him today. And then also I want to shout out to the Tennessee Sheriff's Association. Again, I talked to him at Criminal Sub today, but some people need more love than others. So. Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. If she's still in the audience somewhere or another, and I do spy her back there, my baby girl, my daughter, Allison Lambert, is here right there in the second row. Baby, stand up and let me embarrass you. Hello, y'all make her feel welcome. She's not going to stand up.
Members, anyone else? That's all I had on the list. All right, we ready to get started? All right, we have a calendar today. If we could go out of order, members, with your indulgence, and move to item 11, House Bill 962. See Chairman Hawk there. So you got a motion in a second, and I'm not seeing any amendments on this bill. Came through Criminal Sub, I believe, so you're probably recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and members. House Bill 962 is a permissive bill that would allow a local government to set up a hemp/CBD board. Leader Lambert has a bill he's been working on very diligently that may move these enforcement mechanisms from the Department of Ag to the ABC. This would have no effect on that. It would be in conjunction, should the bill go forward, the local government would work permissively with the ABC just to set up a board. We need all hands on deck as we're dealing with this issue in our communities. And that's what the bill does, Chairman and members.
Thank you, Chairman Hawk. Members, have any questions on the bill? Any questions? I have Representative Johnson, you recognize.
Do you think this might create any confusion as far as for especially small businesses? What is the authority? That sort of, it's regulated at the federal level, the state level, local level.
Chairman Hawk.
I don't envision that. I see this again being a cooperative effort. Should Leader Lambert's bill go forward, which I feel confident that it will, that the ABC will still be the lead agency. This would be a complementary effort together with locals. Doesn't have to happen. It just gives the locals an option, and ABC must approve of any type of agreement. I don't see it. I see it all working in conjunction as opposed to one person or one entity standing out above the others. I see it more of a concert of all these folks working together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Members, anyone else before we vote? Are we ready to vote? Any objection to the question? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of sending House Bill 962 to Commerce, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Is there a member voted? Any member need to change their vote? Ms. Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 ayes, 0 noes, and 1 present not voting.
Very good. House Bill 962 moves on to commerce.
Thank you, Chairman and
Thank you.
members. Thank you.
All right, members, folks, if we move back now, if we go to the beginning of the calendar, item 1, House Joint Resolution 100 by Chairman Faison. Members, I'm not seeing any amendments here, so Mr. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. Very good to be with you. This is a bill that urges our state and the people who handle our opioid abatement system to dedicate 25% of their money to Narcan or to naloxone. And I do have a witness that I'd like for y'all to hear from. And after he shares his thoughts, I'll come back up and share up and answer any questions you have. If that's all right with you, Mr. Chair.
That's fine with me. Members, is anyone object to going out of session hearing from Mr. Massengill? All right, seeing none. Sir, if you just approach there and have a seat and your mic's on, just introduce yourself and you have 3 minutes. And
Thank you,
unlimited
Mr.
time for
Chairman
questions.
and committee for allowing me to talk. My name is George Massengill, and I'm represent a nonprofit called REACH. And but more importantly than that, I'm in long-term recovery myself for 37 years, and highly support what Representative Faison is presenting. Feeling is that the most important thing we can do short term with the crisis we have going on, as everybody reads and is well aware, is more naloxone available reduces death rate. We know that. And not only more naloxone available, but also to do some public awareness of that. A lot of folks still really don't know what naloxone is. A lot of people, I won't ask for a show of hands, but a lot of people don't carry naloxone, and we all should carry naloxone because it is the medication that if someone is overdosing and we have that available and can administer that, they most of the time will survive. So we highly support what Representative Faison is doing, and we think that 25% pushed out into more naloxone and more public awareness is a good way to go. Short term, a year or so, that doesn't mean from now on. There's lots of great things to be done with that money. And the committee's doing a great job. The Opioid Abatement Council's doing a great job. The state's doing a great job. So it's not a negative thing. It's just adding to what's being put out on the street today to increase the ability to save lives. And so support that very heavily.
Thank you for that, sir. Members, any questions for our guest? Representative Powell, saw your hand first. You recognize.
Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Just a question also for the general public. Is there any danger to having this where, say, like a child was to get a hold of it? If somebody was to, somebody want to keep it in their car or on their person, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't speak as a medical personnel because I don't know, but I don't know of that happening. And I don't think that's something that happens often to know of it happening. So I think there's very little chance of naloxone ended up in the hands of the wrong person. There's a pretty strong package. I think you guys have some there of getting that even out to use that. So I don't want to speak to it medically, but I don't know of that ever being an issue or being talked about as an issue.
Any follow-up, Representative Powell? And I have Representative Towns. You're next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here again, thank you for your testimony as well. High kudos to you for fighting that demon for as long as you have. Look good. Very good.
Thank you.
Now, if a person is perceived to be in an episode and we give them this medicine and they were not, would the medicine hurt them at all?
No, sir.
Good.
No, sir.
Good.
It won't hurt them.
Okay, very good. Very good. That's good to know. I didn't know that. Okay. Right. Keep fighting the battle.
Thank you,
Appreciate you.
sir.
Chair Littleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are there any side effects to this at all?
No, not really side effects. I mean, it's basically the medication lasts for a certain amount of time. And if you have fentanyl on board or an opiate on board, it kind of diminishes that. But other than that, there's not side effects to the.
Chair Littleton. Yeah. Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Mr. Chairman. I've had police officers tell me that they have had to Narcan the same person like 3 times in one day. So does that damage their body in any way?
Again, I'm not a medical personnel, but I don't think so. And I think at the end of the day, I would say the same as if you had to have a defibrillator on somebody 3 times in one day, it saved their life. So, I mean, there may be some issues that it creates, but the saving their life way outweighs the fact if you didn't have it, they wouldn't be here to have the issues they might have.
Any
Thank
follow-up?
you. No, thank you.
Very good. Members, anyone else have any questions? Vice Chair Davis?
Thank you, Mr. Massagill. I just wanted to say thank you again for coming before our committee. I appreciate your bravery and sharing yourself and your story and doing this. But isn't it so that Narcan essentially fills that opioid? The opioid is in the receptor in the brain, and Narcan replaces that, kind of knocks that opioid out of that receptor. So that, but it eventually dissipates over time. And so if there's a lot of fentanyl in that person's system, then those opioids go back to that receptor in the brain. But regardless of if someone tries to spray it into somebody that doesn't have fentanyl or opioid in their system, it doesn't harm them.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Members, anyone else? All right. Looks like that's it. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any objection going back into session? All right. Chairman Fashion, back on the bill. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Last year, probably every one of you can tell a story of the last few years of life of somebody that overdosed. And not just a person that maybe society has forgotten, or somebody's just a chronic drug addict that's always in trouble. And I think society, unfortunately, we look at them a certain way. But we're talking people that you go to church with, people who innocently, if you will, got into taking pain medicines from a surgery, and the next thing you know, they're addicted. And it's really a stain on society. I've been kind of doing a deep dive, trying to get my mind around how society can embrace people like that, and what can society do. This is embarrassing to tell you, but on many reports, Tennessee is the number 3 state in America for overdoses. We're only beat out by West Virginia and the District of Columbia. We have something that will save lives, and it's this naloxone. I had a legislator ask me last week when I was talking about this. They asked me, can you get high from naloxone? Because they were thinking they might be against the bill. And so when I heard that, I did not break the rules, by the way, because we gave you that naloxone before committee was gavelled in, unless you were coming late, Representative Harris, but everybody else wasn't late. You got some naloxone, so understand that little thing holding, and that's funny, but that little thing you see in your hand right there has saved lives all around your districts. That little thing right there is one thing they can just push it right there at their nose, squeeze it out, and it'll bring them back to life. And you say, and I've heard the argument last week also, well, Jeremy, if they want to die, why should we bring them back to life? So that's a legitimate question. And I wonder if you're thinking that, let me answer that. There are people that who got on a vape or did something and they had no clue it was laced with fentanyl. People who did not have a desire to die. Maybe they were dabbling with something they shouldn't be dabbling with, but it was not their intent to say, I'm going to take my life. We don't know the difference in who was and who wasn't. But to me, if we are pro-life, and our state says we're pro-life, I feel like we should do everything we can do, not just to preserve life before birth, but preserve life and do what we can do after birth as well. And that little device that you have that I showed you before we gavelled in, it can do just that. My bill, I'll explain to you now. Right now, we spend about 6% of the opioid abatement money on getting that into the market. Committee, I have a desire to flood the market with Narcan. I would like to see it everywhere. I'd like to see us have dispensaries at all the places that drugs are problems. I'm going to have one for all 132 legislators. I'd love it if everybody had one in their office or their car. You never know that you might just be the person to save somebody's life. And I think we should have it as many places throughout the state of Tennessee as we can. So that's what this bill does. It urges our people who are pushing that money out and doing certain things with that money to right now, for the next few years, let's triage. Let's see if we can't get some of the overdoses down in our state.
Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Just for my curiosity, the cost of what this would be?
Chairman Pace.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Johnson. There are a handful of companies that make it. There are some more expensive. I've been told they're in the tune of $24, and there are some people that are making it, and it's all the way down in the teens. the ones that you have right there in front of you are the ones that are made in the teens, because it's naloxone. No matter if you're the expensive one or the cheap one, it's naloxone, and it saves lives. And that's what I'm pushing. And I'm not telling the Opioid Abatement Council who to buy from. I personally think they should buy naloxone, the cheapest they should buy. They can, because it saves lives, and it's the same chemical regardless of the modality or the maker.
Any follow-up, Representative Johnson?
No.
You good?
that's it.
Thank you. All right, they have Vice Chair Davis.
Chairman Faison, thank you so much for bringing this legislation and this resolution. This is something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I wanted to say thank you again. Over the summer, year before last, Chairman Faison came to an event with some families that I helped to organize. It was called For Them We Fight. And it was families where their loved ones had died from fentanyl. And there was a mother that told us a story about her son, and his mouth was hurting him, and he was a senior in high school, and they had tried to schedule a dental appointment, and then they'd canceled it because he'd had a test, or just life gets in the way. And he was also working at a restaurant, and he finally got to the point to where his mouth was really hurting him. And he was like, Mom, I'm just going to have to go. Regardless of what's going on at school, I've got to go to the dentist. And she had scheduled a dental appointment for that Monday. And that Sunday, he worked at the restaurant. Well, he must have been complaining about his tooth hurting him. And another fellow employee gave him a pill. Well, when she woke him up, or when she went into his room Monday to take him to the dentist, she found him dead. And it was because that pill was laced with fentanyl. And this is the reason why this is so important, is because there are so many people across not only our state, but across our country that have had family and loved ones that they thought they were taking some kind of medication and didn't understand or didn't know that it was laced with fentanyl. And so thank you very much for this, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate your attendance.
Thank you. Any response there, Mr. Chairman? You good? And next, and then last, I have Representative Towns, and I'll get you Representative Salinas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As well, thank you for the bill. A couple of questions for you. Can this be used more than once?
Chairman?
That's a one-time dosage.
Okay,
yes, sir.
one-time dosage, okay. As been said, many people are getting drugs and they think it's one thing that's laced. Even the marijuana, I understand, is being laced with this stuff, man. Okay, so will this money allow us to do PSA announcements so young people can learn that this probably is not what you think it is, so to stay away from it if we're able to pass this bill?
Chairman Faison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say that the Opioid Abatement Council is using money for PSAs. My friend that you just heard about, George Massengill, has a group of interested individuals that have resources. They are pulling money. They've got the coach from the Tennessee Titans. There's fixing to be billboards and commercials with him and other people that are kind of name, and they're going to start showing you. They're going to be holding Narcan or naloxone. So this is what we're going to do to save lives. So there's PSAs coming. This bill doesn't do that, but the Opioid Abatement Council is going to start using some of that money, and they're going to pull money as well.
Okay, thank you for that. But specifically what I'm meaning is this: you remember drunk driving, kids driving drunk and da-da-da. We got across the country PSA announcements to target just that, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We saw it improve and the death rate go down. Okay, now I'm more concerned with, in conjunction with this, letting people know what you think you're getting probably is not what you're getting, and it could be laced with da-da-da-da-da-da, which will kill you. Okay. And so stay away from it, okay? Because you don't know. If marijuana is not legal and is not certified, you don't know where it's been. You don't know what's in it, okay? You go to smoke a joint and somebody finds you have transitioned to the other side. And young people need to know. Anybody needs to know, okay? I mean, just today, you just can't trust this stuff off the street. You cannot trust it. It's too dangerous. So that area of PSA announcement, and kids think they're really smart. They think we're the dumb ones and they know everything. And we have to educate them and educate ourselves as well. So I would like to see the PSA announcement address the stuff is fake and it's dangerous, so don't do it, stuff like that. Okay. But thanks for the bill as well. Appreciate it.
Very good. Next on those, I have Leader Lamberth.
Move previous question.
Leader, I had this Representative Salinas on the list there. Could you just and she's the last one.
Mr. Chairman, I will roll down a space, but I will admit we've been at a resolution for quite some time, and there are multiple members that are waiting in the room. And I would only, out of respect for them, remind the members that this is a very important resolution, but it is a resolution, and there are several bills on the calendar. But yes, Mr. Chairman, out of respect from our friend from Memphis, I will roll one space.
Representative Salinas, you're recognized, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Leader Lambert. I got the opportunity to research at the University of Kentucky, and I worked on infectious diseases, but next to my lab were all the substance use disorder research, and I learned so much about all the treatments that are being developed. And I think that this bill helps us reduce some of the stigma that's around, because I think if we treated substance use disorders in the way that we treat cancer or infectious diseases or any other disease, we would be in a different place in moving and saving lives in our state and in our districts. However, there are a lot of, and this is a one-time use thing, as Representative Towns' question addressed. There are other treatments that are coming along that are longer lasting, and there's a space for counseling for other things that allow better success for patients that are trying to overcome this disorder that they have. And some of them can't help it. It's their genetics. And that's what the research is showing. And until we address access to health care, this is just putting a Band-Aid on it. So we need to act with urgency so that more people have access to health care in our state if we want to save lives in our districts.
And thank you for that. Members, the question has been called. Any objection to the question? All right. All those in favor of sending House Joint Resolution 100 to calendar and rules, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Every member voted. Any member want to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. House Joint Resolution 100 moves to calendar and rules. Members, we could move down and keep Chairman facing up there. Item 7, House Bill 751. So you got a motion and a second. I'm looking at House Amendment 4507.
That's it.
Is that something you'd like to go ahead and put that on?
Yes, sir.
To explain it as a whole. Members, any objection to adopting House Amendment 4507? All right, all those in favor of adopting House Amendment 4507 to House Bill 751, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Now we're back in the bill as amended. You're properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee, this bill, I'm seeking to increase the penalty for having fentanyl or the derivatives of fentanyl around children. I was speaking to my Greene County sheriff, and he had heard of a story of where an adult had left their stuff out that was part of their drug making situation. A child touched it, and it took the life of the child. So all I want to do is make it a Class C felony for 1 to 6 years and a Class B felony for 8 to 30 years. And that's what this bill does.
Members, any questions for Chairman Faison? I have Representative Johnson, ma'am, you're recognized.
So this requires exposure. It doesn't require exposure, correct? I mean, so my question will be, say you are in a park and you are arrested and you have fentanyl on your person, and there is a children's place in the park. You're in the area, but no one is actually exposed to it. What does that look like?
Chairman Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what we're saying is if the term right now is negligently showing, I'm strengthening that term to knowingly have this in front of a child. So I'm looking at this more of a place at home. Obviously, I think if you're at a park and you've got fentanyl or its derivatives, you deserve jail. You don't need to be around children, period. But this is really geared towards more at the home situation or wherever they're at. As far as where they live and where they're doing drugs, probably more than just sitting at a park.
Any follow-up?
And yes, because I understand that, but it's also going to include this type of situation where you might knowingly know there were children, but they weren't exposed to anything, and you can't die from touching fentanyl. That is an urban legend. And I think It's a fact. But so that's why I'm concerned that it could, in some circumstances, there not be exposure.
Chairman Faison. All right. I have Representative Travis here on the list. Question's been called. Any objections? Seeing none. All those in favor of sending House Bill 751 as amended to calendar and rules, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Any member want to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote, please.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 ayes, 2 noes, and 2 present not voting.
All right, House Bill 751 as amended is moving to calendar and rules. Now, members, if we could just move down out of order once again, item 8, House Bill 755 by Chairman Faison. You got a motion and a second. I'm looking at House Amendment 3261, sir.
That's it.
All right. Is that something you want to go ahead and adopt that or
Yes, sir.
put in a good, very good. Got a motion and a second on that. Members, any objection to adopting House Amendment 3261? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now we're back on the bill as amended and you're properly recognized.
Thank you, committee, for me to set up what this bill does. I'll tell you a quick story about a very dear friend of Chairman Farmer and myself. Judge Dwayne Sloan last August, towards the end of August, came to a tragic death. He is a circuit court judge in our district that a lot of us love. He fought in this drug area big time, set up all sorts of places for pregnant women to go, just did a really good job at that. He served that whole month of August. And when it was come time for him to get paid, his widow called me and said, Jeremy, we didn't get paid in September for his work in August. Just wanted you to be aware of that and see if there's something going on. Did I miss something? So I reached out to the AOC and they said, Jeremy, this has been a problem for us for a long time. Somebody in 1994 passed a law, and we don't know why. The state legislature said that if the person dies before their check is paid, if it's up to $10,000, that we're going to send it to probate. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. He worked it, that he deserves to get paid. And they're like, well, that's the law. So I feel like, well, we need to figure out what's going on. So I called the Chamber of Commerce. I called the NFIB to ask them if they have any issues with me just saying there's no cap. If somebody's worked, they deserve the money. That check should come regardless of they died on the same week of the check being there or not. Everybody was in agreement with me from Chamber of Commerce to NFIB to the AOC. They were all excited that we're going to get this fixed because unfortunately it's happened several times in the state and there's nothing they can do except to get caught up in probate. And then that's no fair to the family. So all this bill does is we're taking caps off. And if you've worked, that check should still be coming.
Members, any questions for Chairman Faison? All right, seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. Members, we're voting to send House Bill 755 to calendar and rules as amended. 755. All members, all in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Every member voted. Anybody want to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 21 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. House Bill 755 as amended is moving to calendar and rules.
You've
Thank
been
you.
good to me, Judiciary.
Members, if we could just indulge me one more time. Item 10, House Bill 473. Chairman Crawford. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman there. And we have, sir, we have House Amendment 4751. Is that something you'd like to adopt? We'll put it on or?
Yes, sir. 4751.
All right, got a motion and a second on amendment. Any objection to adopting this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting House Amendment 4751 to House Bill 473, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Now we're back on the bill as amended. You're properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. Thank you, guests, for being with us today. House Bill 473. It has come to be known as the DNA bill. When a person is arrested and indicted for a felony, the LEA must take a DNA sample before they are released or must make it a part or a condition of the release on bond. This is no different than kind of what we do now. When someone's arrested, they go in, they get their fingerprints took, they, get their picture taken. This just will require a DNA sample to be taken upon the booking process, not after conviction. There's 19 other states that has done this. And so it's nothing new as far as within the United States. It's being practiced. We've not had any problems this time. This bill was brought to me by my local district attorney and my circuit court clerk. Just to make a quick story here, we had an individual who raped a lady in Kingsport and ended up killing her son, and he got by with it for 27 years. The DNA was taken from the scene, but we didn't have the technology or the equipment to tie that all in. Now that we have made advancements in DNA with all the new stuff that we have, this individual was arrested and convicted. And so that solved a 27-year-old cold case. And that's what we're hoping to do with this particular bill, solve some cold cases and to make Tennesseans safer.
Thank you, sir, for that explanation. Members, any questions? I have Representative Johnson, you recognize.
I can't remember if we talked about this in subcommittee, but if the person is found to be innocent, is their DNA going to be removed?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, according to federal law and TBI, they have certain standards that they have to meet. If this person is indicted, if they are found not convicted or they plead down, it's not a felony, then all those specimens have to be destroyed at that time.
Representative Johnson.
And who is responsible for that?
Chairman Carter.
I would assume TBI would, since they're the one that keeps them and stores them.
Any follow-up? Representative Johnson, you good?
No, that's good.
Fair enough. All right. I have next on the list. I have Representative Towns. Okay. Pass. Representative Powell.
Yes, sir.
A question for the sponsor. Are there multiple vendors and different people that can do this if it's necessary, or you aware of multiple companies and businesses able to do this? I know the TBI is going to be working with it, but like if they can't, because we had a group here that was talking, some of this will be outsourced. Can you speak to that, how this would work?
Chairman Crawford.
As far as I know, it will only be TBI. They're the ones that stores the samples, and of course the buccal swabs and those type things will be done at the local jails and sent in to TBI.
Okay. Any follow-up, Representative Powell? Good. Okay. Members, anyone else? All right. Question's been called. Any objection? I don't see any objection. Members, all in favor of moving House Bill 473 as amended to Finance, Ways and Means, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does anyone want to change their vote? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 ayes, 3 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. Chairman Crawford, House Bill 473 as amended is moved to Finance, Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Thank you. That brings us back up to item 2, House Bill 786. I believe Vice Chair Davis is going to be carrying that for us. Ma'am, you got a motion and a second on the bill. Looks like I see Amendment 3856. Got a motion and a second. Members, do we want to go ahead and adopt that amendment? Any objection? All those in favor, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting House Amendment 3856 to House Bill 786, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Now we're back in the bill as amended, and you're probably recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. So this bill increases the penalties for rideshare and taxi cab impersonations to improve rider safety, protect driver earnings, and to maintain trust in each of those forms of transportation. The legislation makes it a Class B misdemeanor to impersonate a rideshare or taxi driver intentionally knowing that you're doing that.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Members, do we have any questions for Vice Chair Davis on the bill? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Any objection to the question? All right. All those in favor of sending House Bill 786 as amended to calendar and rules, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Anybody want to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. Members, House Bill 786 as amended is moving to calendar and rules. Thank you. Members, that brings us to item 3, House Bill 1148. Representative Butler. And Representative Butler, I've got a couple of amendments here, 3567, 4304.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We use 3567.
3567. So you got a motion and a second on amendment. Members, do we want to go ahead and put this amendment on? Any objection to adopting this amendment? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting House Amendment 3567 to House Bill 1148, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Now we're back on the bill as amended, and you are properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. All the amendment does is correct some drafting language, but this bill simply removes THCA and THCP from the list of authorized hemp-derived cannabinoids. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I can go into lots of data if you'd prefer.
And I do have some folks signed up to speak in opposition to this. Members, I'll handle this however you all want me to. Representative Johnson, I saw your hand. Do you want to, you want to wait? Members, we'll go ahead and go out of session and see if Emerald Heart and Nutraceuticals is here, maybe a representative of that company, or out of those folks here, or a representative of? Okay, we'll scratch that. Any questions for Representative Butler? Representative Johnson, you recognize.
So doesn't all hemp have THCA?
Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does. There are conflicting stories. Some cannabis products or some cannabis plants, there's over 100 varieties. Some of them have trace amounts and some of them have higher amounts. But yes, to answer your question, they all do have trace amounts of THCA.
Representative Johnson.
So would this destroy the entire hemp industry in Tennessee?
Representative Butler, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't opine on that, but this would prevent them from selling THCA.
Representative Johnson, you recognize.
So what states surrounding Tennessee, this is something that's legal to possess in Tennessee, but we're going to make it not legal to sell. And which states surrounding Tennessee have a similar law to ours?
Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this legislation bans THC and THCP. I can't speak to the other states, but we have a major public health crisis. And I think we heard from Chairman Faison earlier on a resolution for naloxone, which saves people's lives. And his resolution was to encourage a 25% increase in purchasing that. And this legislation right here will hopefully reduce the need for that, because we have children that are getting a hold of products they shouldn't get a hold of. We have school systems that are dealing with THCA vapes, along with other things that we have no idea what's in those. This has become a public health crisis. And I know you're making an argument for the hemp industry. While there are maybe some farmers that are affected by this, it doesn't prevent somebody from raising a product that has trace amounts of THC in it that are really not identifiable.
Representative Johnson, any follow-up?
Yes. So what about those people who have chronic illnesses who use this for their pain so that they don't have to take opiates? I mean, this is a lot of folks that use cannabis products, hemp products, because of pain or other things with chronic illnesses, and it prevents them from having to use those opiates.
Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question, Representative. There are 5 medications currently available by prescription: Marinol, Dribinol, Sysmex, Stivix, and I may not be pronouncing them correctly, and Imdoplix. I'm glad to give you the spelling on all those. I don't know how they come up with these names.
That's okay.
But there are 5 medications that are currently available prescription that are commonly referred to as the marijuana pills.
Representative Johnson.
But there are a lot of different uses for these substances that I'm talking about that are legal and are federally allowed in our state. So I'll be voting no on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any response? Okay, very good. Next on the list, I have Representative Harris. Sir, you recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. And sponsor, does this now align with the bill that passed on the Senate side now? So before I ask my next question.
Representative Butler.
If you're referring to the bill that passed yesterday in Judiciary, yes, it does.
Okay.
You recognize.
Thank you, Chair. And so if that's the case, then this is going to, because I couldn't see it in this fiscal note, but this would hurt about 30% of our hemp business, right?
Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know about what percentage it would hurt. There are some CBD oils and some salves and so forth that probably will not be affected by this. But I don't know what the percentages are. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Representative Harris?
Yes, and so currently, like you said, it was a health crisis. We also can say the same thing for tobacco as a health crisis, but we continue to push that. So, or alcohol, and what caused you to want to bring this legislation at this point now?
Representative Butler. That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. So we had a 5th grade student that was suspended from one of my school systems because he had a THCA gummy and thought it was a gummy bear. And if you read the instructions, which are written very, very small, you almost have to have a magnifying glass to read them. It says to take a nibble and wait 6 hours. Now, I would venture to say there's not an individual in this room that takes a nibble of an Oreo cookie or a Dorito or a Pringle. You eat the whole thing. Just likewise, a child is going to eat the entire gummy. And so this has gotten into our school systems, the vapes, the gummies, and it's becoming a major problem. And I can give you loads of data from Colorado, which I think serve as a really good example of what happens to the state after they legalize something. So I want to go the other way and ban it to avoid us getting into the situation that Colorado's in.
Representative Harris? Any follow-up? Okay. All right, next on the list to have Chairman Todd. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my question is really about the stages, I guess, of the plant and the products. So I see reference here to products offered for sale. Is this, if this were to pass as you have amended, can a farmer still raise some of those 100+ varieties now that would have some THCA in them in the field pursuant to the Federal Farm Act and the laws we have on the books today, but their final products just couldn't have it? Is that a safe assumption or analysis?
Representative Butler. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I understand your question and the data that I've been given and gathered, out of the over 100 varieties of cannabis, there are some that have just relatively trace amounts. Really, it's not really, I won't say it's not detectable, but the intent is when a product is harvested, right now under the current legislation, you can have 0.3 THC level in that product. But when you heat that product, when it ages, the THC level increases. You can lay a THC product on your dashboard of your car in the summertime, and the THCA level will increase because that's what heat does to it, and time does the same thing. So if someone was making a salve product, a CBD oil with one of the varieties that has a almost undetectable THC level, then they would be still able to produce those products.
Chairman Todd.
That to me is a critical factor here because many of our growers are growing products legally. They're producing what items public is demanding that are not so psychoactive. They're salves or oils, things like that. And I'm very concerned about hurting their business and their customers that are getting some benefit out of this. And not for nefarious purposes. So that's been a big concern of mine. As you know, you and I have had many conversations, and I've appreciated the dialogue and you talking to at least one of my growers and trying to understand their plight even more. So that was a critical factor to me. If they can still grow what they're growing today, produce the products they're growing today that are not the gummies or not anything, the consumables other than the oils, that still comply with the 0.3 Delta 9 THC that's in the law today, then that's a critical factor to me, because I've not heard of any product like that, the salves and oils for sure, that get heated to produce more THC. So if you know I haven't asked you that directly before today, but if that is the case, then I would be concerned about it. But right now, I've not understood that that's possible. Can you answer that?
Yeah, Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, this would require 0 THCA. Now, it's arguable where there's a trace amount in those salve products, CBD oils, And if it's not, if let's just say it had a 0.001 THCA level in it, if it's heated and it doesn't increase the THC level, I don't think it's going to be an issue. The medicinal benefit if there is one with the salve product, then you would still be able to produce those products, still be able to produce that CBD oil or whatever other product there is.
Chairman Todd?
No, in section 6, item 4, the amendment mentions that department testing must be done by post decarbolization, which I think is a good idea. That gets us a true assessment of the product. What department is that referring to? Is that currently agriculture, or will it change after this?
Representative Butler? You recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe that would be a TBI lab, or it could be an independent third party, I think, that would be certified and licensed to do so.
Very good. President Powell, you're next. You recognize.
So reading the bill, this looks to basically, upon passage, take effect immediately. Echoing some of the comments made, I mean, is there concern for businesses in the state that are operating under one set of rules and all of a sudden something passes and they're out of business the next day? I mean, my concern is going beyond this. Any business that's playing by any set of rules in the state could find themselves at the whim of the legislature and be put out of business overnight. So I just wish you would address that.
Thank you.
Representative Butler, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question. I believe there was an amendment put on yesterday in the Senate that would make it effective July 1st. And at the will of this committee, we moved through here, we would put that amendment on in finance to follow the same suit as the Senate did and make it effective July 1st of this year.
Any follow-up, Representative Powell?
I guess my follow-up to that is 2 months is still pretty immediate impact. You got people that have staked their livelihood on this. And I guess just one last thing is, since you brought up Colorado, want to reference, I was in Colorado. We had another public health crisis, the start of it, and that was mass shootings at Columbine. We did little, if any, still to combat gun violence in our state. So if we really care about children, protecting them, let's focus on gun violence and mass shootings. Thank you.
All right, Representative Butler, any follow-up? Good. Okay. Leader Lamberth, you're next. Or excuse me, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for bringing the bill. I mean, obviously, I have another bill that deals with a similar issue, and this is contained within that bill. And so that is more of a regulatory framework. I just want to bring up, since we're talking about Colorado, that Delta 8 products are actually illegal in Colorado. Delta 9 THC, commonly known as marijuana, is allowed there, but many of the products that we actually allow to be sold in Tennessee are not legal in Colorado. They are highly synthesized. They are derivatives of the hemp plant. And as far as, growing hemp or anything like that, I don't think your bill would affect that. What it does affect is hemp-derived cannabinoids. And it says very clearly that THCA and THCP would not be able to be sold out there. And if you visit a hemp shop, and I have gone and visited a hemp shop, and I was invited in by them to see what they sold, you would find it currently indistinguishable from a marijuana shop in Colorado or any other state that has legalized marijuana. We have not done that in this state. If we chose to take that step, obviously there are bills every year that can do that. But THCA, they sell in pre-rolled joints by the gram, and it is sold to look like, act like, and yes, get folks intoxicated just like marijuana. So I said this in an earlier committee today. It's just a policy decision for the legislature. We're all elected by our districts. We all answer our constituents the same. And it's a decision as to whether or not to have these particular products on the shelf. There are hundreds of other products that are out there that are THC derived. This is just two of them. So THCA and THCP specifically, and their derivatives there. To me, it's just not something we should have out there in any form unless in trace amounts that would not get somebody high. So I support the legislation. I think it's a good idea. Appreciate you bringing it.
Any follow-up, Representative Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just renewed my motion.
Very good. And I have one more on the list. I have Representative Towns, sir. You good? Pass? All right, members. Chairman Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got to ask this to the leader if he inhaled.
At your
I don't
leisure.
mind saying I didn't purchase any of the products there, but I will say that the gentleman and his staff that invited me into his shop were very professional. They were kind to me. They explained exactly what they do and do not. They explained all of their products and were very knowledgeable in those. I didn't purchase any of them, but they had everything from drinks to candies and everything else. And again, this bill doesn't affect any of those. And 90% of what that shop was, it wouldn't. There are a couple of products that it would that do make up a significant market share. And I think the number 30% was thrown out earlier. I think that's from revenue, where it is about 30% of what's being sold out there are the pre-rolled joints. But again, I know you're just kidding with me, but I do want to say that, I mean, that gentleman did invite me into his business. He has been in business for several years. He explained to me some of the issues that he had with the bill that I have. While I didn't partake in the products, I can tell you he was a consummate professional with me, and I appreciated it.
Very good. Any follow-up, Chairman Russell?
Question on bill.
Very good. Question has been called. Members, any objection? Seeing none. Looks like we're ready to vote to send House Bill 1148 as amended to Finance, Ways and Means. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has everyone voted? Anyone want to change their vote? All right. Madam Clerk, take the vote, please.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 ayes, 7 noes, and 1 present not voting.
Very good. House Bill 1148 as amended is moving to Finance, Ways and Means.
Thank you, committee.
All right, members, we're going to item 4, House Bill 1165, Representative Parkinson. So we've been patiently waiting. Thank you. You've got House Amendment 4508.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill creates an
You got a motion and a second, sir, and then we got House Amendment 4508. Do we need to go ahead? Is that something you want to put on and explain it as a whole, or members, we'll go ahead and put that amendment on? Any objection? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting House Amendment 4508, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Now we're back on the bills amended, and you're properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill simply creates an enhancement for adults that coerce minors into doing crimes.
Very good, members. Any questions for Representative Parkinson? All right, seeing none, are we ready to vote? Okay, Representative Johnson, you're recognized. Oh, we're on the bill.
Okay.
On the bill as amended.
I do have a question. Is this the bill where the adult is charged more for a crime if an adult and a child do a crime together? Is that?
The adult, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
This bill only creates an enhancement for adults that coerce minors into doing crimes.
Okay.
Representative Johnson.
And so my concern is if 2 high school seniors are together, one is 17 and one is 18, then say the 17-year-old's a boy, the 18-year-old is a girl, the 17-year-old does the crime, they're together, they both get charged because they are together. And the female who is 18, because she is 18, gets charged at a higher level than the 17-year-old. Or even if it's a 17 and an 8-year-old, 2 high school seniors, smoking pot or drinking alcohol, which is illegal, that they would get charged differently, even though they're peers. I suppose my concern would be I'd like to see that the adult be 25 and the young person be underage. It's 17 and 18 just seems problematic to me. Can you address that?
Representative Parkin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The adult would have had to coerce that minor into doing a crime.
Representative Johnson, any follow-up?
Yes, I guess sometimes the coercion is a tough thing to determine with peers. So that's just my concern. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Members, anyone else? I have Representative Powell. You're recognized. Did not pass. All right, members, any additional questions? Not seeing any. We ready to vote? Any objections to the question? Seeing none. Looks like we're ready to vote to send House Bill 1165 as amended to Finance, Ways and Means. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, no. Does everyone voted?
Thank you.
Everyone like to take a vote?
Committee.
All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 17 ayes, 1 no, and 2 present not voting.
Very good. House Bill 1165 as amended, moves to Finance, Ways and Means. Very good. That brings us to item 5, House Bill 582. Representative Scarborough, I believe you're going to carry that for Chairman Doggett. Thank you, Chairman. Members, this bill brought to by the sheriffs and the chiefs in cooperation with TBI. All it does is codify what's been in practice for decades when it comes to classification of sex offenders in Tennessee. Makes it explicitly clear in statute that it was always been the practice in this state. TBI has classified these offenders because of their subject matter expertise, legal resources, and creates a central location for this work to be done. This bill will answer the question in the future when the TBI in a couple of different court cases, it's been asked, is the TBI have the statutory authority to classify offenders? And this bill in the future will be able to answer that question. Yes, TBI has authority and shall classify offenders. Without this legislation, TBI could stop. I'm not saying they would, but they could stop classifying offenders and push this burden on to local law enforcement who lacks the expertise and resources to do so. And with that, sir, I'll take any questions. And as I understand it, great explanation, Representative Scarborough, but I understand we're basically giving TBI the authority to do something they've been doing for decades. We're giving them the statutory authority because the courts have said, hey, you may or may not have the statutory authority to do so. So we're just doing basically what the courts have basically asked us to do, protecting that statute, protecting our children. Is that a clear understanding? Yes, sir. You recognize? Yes, sir, Chairman. All right, members, any questions? All right, questions been called. We ready to vote? Any objection? All right, looks like we're ready to vote to send House Bill 582 to calendar and rules. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Excuse me. That's just about. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Every member voted. Anybody want to change the vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 21 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Thank you. House Bill 582 moves to calendar and rules. Some old habits are hard to kick. This is on, anyways. All right, if we could move down to item 9. Leader Cochran's been sitting there for a little bit. If we can. All right, House Bill 547. I'm not seeing any amendments, sir. You're probably recognized.
All right, thank you, Chairman and Committee. House Bill 547. It's a bill that creates a public safety fund for the district attorneys that is similar to the pre-existing Public Defenders Fund. Establishes a $12.50 charge to provide additional support services to support those DA offices. Again, that we actually considered this last year, kind of got held up there at the end, made it through this committee, got held up in finance, but I think we've got that squared away. I'll yield to any questions.
Very good. Members, any questions for Leader Cochran? Representative Towns, you recognized.
Thank you, Leader. The funds that are collected, it's going to be dispersed statewide, right? For those particular areas.
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It would be the funds that would be collected from that district, and so it would be localized in that. First of all, your local county commission would have to vote to approve to adopt that. And just to give you a little bit more background, it's replacing a fund that's already in existence, but it's a fund that comes off of cases regarding bad checks, and there just aren't many checks written anymore. I offended a few committee members in subcommittee when I said no one writes checks anymore. I want to correct that and say that they are diminishing a bit. So,
Thank you for any follow-up. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good enough.
Very good. I have next Representative Hardaway. I saw your hand.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to take the opportunity to deliver the appreciation from my DA in Shelby County, Steve Mulroy. He supports this, and thus I support it.
Thank you.
Very good, Leader. I have Chairman Russell. You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask the sponsor if he's ever written a check.
Leader Cochran.
Just a couple, every now and then, not many.
Very good. Very good. Leader Lambert, you recognize, sir.
Chairman Littleton and I wanted to at least mention that we are not diminishing, we are rallying. So checks at some point we hope will make a comeback. Isn't that right, Representative Stinnett? There's not a thing wrong. Look, Joe's got his checkbook up right now. There's nothing wrong with writing a check, but there's not a lot of us left. I will concede that. But
I appreciate y'all stick with tradition.
Members, any additional questions or concerns for Leader Cochran? All right, seeing none, we ready to vote? Any objection to the question? All right, members, all those in favor of moving House Bill 547 to Finance, Ways and Means, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has that member voted? Does anyone like to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. House Bill 547 moves to Finance, Ways and Means. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Very good. That brings us down to item 12, House Bill 821. Representative Slater. Sir, you've got a motion and a second. Hadn't even made it to the podium yet. You have no amendments.
That is correct.
You are
No
recognized.
amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill requires retailers to ID for all vape and tobacco sales exactly like the current practice for alcohol sales. And with that brief explanation, I stand ready for questions.
Very good. Members, any questions for Representative Slater? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. Members, all those in favor of sending House Bill 821 to calendar and rules, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has that member voted? Any member like to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Congratulations, sir. House Bill 821 is moving to calendar and rules.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee.
Thank you. Item 13, Chair Lady Carringer. Ma'am. House Bill 6641. And I'm not seeing any amendments, and you've got a motion and second, and you're properly recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present House Bill 641. This legislation addresses a 25-year funding shortfall for Tennessee's 32 accredited child advocacy centers, CACs, which provide essential services for children facing abuse and neglect. CACs are legally mandated and work alongside DCS, law enforcement, and district attorneys to provide forensic interviews, victim advocacy, medical exams, mental health therapy, and child abuse prevention. However, funding for CACs has not been adjusted in 25 years despite rising costs and increasing demand. In 2001, CACs received $350 per child served, and today that number has dropped to just $89, even though they now serve over 32,000 children annually. So failure to act now means CAC contracts cannot be amended for another 5 years, marking 30 years without meaningful funding increases. So I would respectfully ask for your support and a favorable vote, and I'll stand ready for any questions.
Representative Powell.
Just want to say thank you for carrying this bill. I hope we really fund it this year in the budget. So I think everybody on this committee would probably agree with that. And want to also commend people in this line of work for the what a service they provide to our state. But thank you for carrying this.
Representative Towns, you recognized.
Ditto the same. Thank you for bringing a bill that will financially recalibrate this funding mechanism, and hopefully allows us to continue to do this great works. And I'd love to sign on to the bill if you don't mind. Thank you.
Members, any additional questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. Members, looks like we're ready to vote. Send House Bill 641 to Finance, Ways and Means. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Any member want to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 20 ayes, 0 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. With that, House Bill 641 is headed to Finance, Ways and Means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman and Committee.
That brings us to item 14, House Bill 33 by Representative Gillespie. Sir, you've got a motion and a second. I don't see any amendments traveling with this bill. If that's correct.
Sorry, just 1 second here. I've got multiple bills here. My apologies.
It's Bill 33.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Committee. This bill involves our bail system. Essentially, what it will do is if you are arrested for a crime that involves a firearm or a firearm with force, and a judge or judicial commissioner decides to release you on your own recognizance for whatever reason, they would then be required to list certain findings backing up that statement, or that decision to release on ROR. In the past, where I live, we've had some judges that have kind of done this, and then 6 months, a year down the road, when that same individual that they've released commits another crime, they've kind of changed their story to the media and the narrative. And so what this is attempting to do is allow that judge to, at the time that the decision is made, to list those findings so that there could be no confusion in the future. It's not going to prevent them from releasing them on their own recognizance. It's just going to add some more transparency for the public so that they know exactly why someone, say, that shoots someone is being released on their own recognizance. And with that, I welcome any questions.
All right, Representative Johnson, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you. So I think that the term that's used here is display. What does that look like? I mean, this is a legal carry state. You can wear a gun on your hip. So would that be displaying a weapon?
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you. A crime resulting in seriously bodily injury or death of the victim. So simply wearing a gun and not committing any crimes is not what this is targeting. I don't know why you'd be arrested for that, but this would be charged with an offense that's involved the use or display of a firearm or resulted in the serious bodily injury or death of the victim. So yes, it is broad, but that is also on purpose, because the intent here is to, I hate doing these hypothetical scenarios, but let's just lay one out here. I walk into a convenience store, I've got a gun in my belt right here that's visible, and I say to you, give me all your money. Did I use the gun? No, but is there an intent there? Absolutely. Otherwise, why would you have the gun to begin with?
Because this is an open carry state.
Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Yeah, I guess I would say I understand what you're getting at, and I appreciate that. I do. But there are other circumstances that come into play. And so when we write legislation, it affects all of that. And I don't know how much more. There's a great conjunction, what's your function, but and, but, and or have different meanings. And this is not and, these are ors. So it could be that one thing, and that is concerning.
Thank you, Representative Gillespie. Any response?
Thank you. And I do understand your concern there. And again, this is as a result of not one, not two, not a dozen, not 100, but hundreds of instances that have happened because of judges doing this. So that is what I'm trying to prevent, and that's why it's vague on purpose. That solves our problem by having it vague.
Creates another.
Thanks, sir. Yes. All right, any additional questions for our sponsor? All right, seeing none, we ready to vote? Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All right, members, all those in favor of House Bill 33 moving to Finance, Ways and Means, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Anyone like to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 ayes, 5 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Thank you. Members, House Bill 33 is moving to Finance, Ways and Means. Thanks, sir. Then also you have the next bill, excuse me, it's item 15, House Bill 38, Representative Gillespie. You got a motion and a second. I don't see any amendments with this one either. So you're probably recognized.
Thank you, committee and chairman. What this is, last year I came before y'all with this pretty much similar bill. It was passed in the House and the Senate. Unfortunately, some changes were made to it on the floor last year. What this would do would be to create a Parental Accountability Act. And what it would do is if your child is adjudicated or found delinquent, not the first time, not the second time, but the third time, it would allow for a fine to be levied against the parent or guardian. And if they cannot afford that, then community service would be offered. And so once again, this would be a situation to where someone that's living with you has already been found delinquent multiple times. we're attempting to put the parents or guardians on notice because, you know, if there's a brand new car in the driveway or a wad of cash, something's going on, someone knows about it, and this is just attempting to encourage more parental or guardian involvement in that child's life. With that, I welcome any questions.
Very good. Members, we have a individual that's asked to speak in opposition to this piece of legislation. We want to go ahead and go out of session and allow for Ms. Suval. Ma'am? Okay, without objection, we'll go to session. Hear from Kara Suval. Thank you, ma'am. Just have a seat there and your microphone's red light will come on. You'll have 3 minutes to give your statements and unlimited time for questions.
Great. Thank you, Chairman Farmer, and thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak on this. My name is Kara Suval. I'm a clinical law professor at Vanderbilt Law School. I teach legal ethics, and I direct our Youth Opportunity Clinic, where my students and I provide free legal services to families and children in Middle Tennessee, including education, advocacy services, and a significant number of the families and the children that we work with have had a couple of delinquency cases, have had 1, 2, 3, sometimes even more than that. And these families, just like I as a parent, just like any parent in this room, these families are doing everything they can to help get their child from a negative path onto a positive and productive path. They don't have a lot of resources, but they are using the time, any money they have, their time, their efforts to work to improve their child's lives. Those are the families that we are working with, and they're certainly not a small number of families that are affected. Representative Gillespie mentioned the word that this would allow judges to do this. The current law that was just passed last year already allows judges, gives judges the discretion to impose this financial penalty. It's called restitution here. But it's a financial penalty on family. Judges already have that discretion. And it was the House Criminal Justice Committee that voted last year to amend that from a requirement to a permission, to instead of saying a judge must or shall impose this, to say a judge may, to give our juvenile court judges the ability to decide the appropriate cases to impose this or not. What this law would be doing is making it mandatory across the board. And I have a number of concerns about this, that this would actually damage public safety instead of improving it. So 2 quick points on that. One is just the families that are either already pouring everything into improving this or that aren't are typically doing that because they don't have the resources. They don't have the ability maybe to get their kid into that drug treatment program or something like that, right? So putting an additional financial penalty on families that already have so little is going to make it even harder for them to seek out services and supports, right? If they need to work that 3rd job instead of being home after school, that's not going to promote public safety, and that's not going to promote supervision of some of these young people. There are so many issues, whether it's mental health issues, substance abuse issues, right, that are behind these situations where there are people who are repeatedly offending, that take resources and efforts. So taking that resources away from these families, I'm really concerned is going to backfire. The second point on that I want to make is that when I see successful cases of a family and a child working in a juvenile court and coming out of it better rather than worse, it's typically because the parents and the court are aligned in their goals for this young person and for the services that young person needs and should receive. So I'm concerned that requiring judges to impose these pretty steep financial penalties is going to get in the way of that relationship and that partnership.
All right, thank you. I think
Okay.
I've got you. It was really over 3 minutes, a little bit. I was trying to let you finish
Thank
that second point there. But first on the list, I have Representative Bolso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Professor Suval, for being here. As I read HB 38, there's no requirement that the parent be found to have caused or contributed to the delinquency, but rather there appears to be an implicit, conclusive presumption that the parent was responsible for the delinquency. My question is, do you read the bill the same way? And if so, is that a concern to you?
Thank you for that question. I absolutely do. And I think that's the difference between this bill and the bill that was passed last year. Not that there was a requirement that there be a finding, but there's that discretion that a juvenile court judge could make If a juvenile court judge thinks a parent has something to do with it and thinks they need to face a consequence like this, they can already do that under the current law. But you're reading it absolutely correctly. This is saying every time there is a child in front of a juvenile court judge on a third or subsequent delinquency offense, that it's going to be this significant financial penalty on the parent, and it's mandatory. So if a judge disagrees with it, if the judge thinks the parent's doing everything they can, the judge would not have the discretion under this law compared to the one that was passed last year.
Any follow-up, sir? Very good. Thank you. Representative Johnson, you're next, ma'am. You're recognized.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the things this bill makes me very curious about is when it comes to restitution. As a teacher, a lot of times we use restorative practices and with discipline with kids, that kind of thing. And restitution is to the victim. Is that what we're doing here? I mean, isn't this sort of a perversion of the word restitution?
Yes, thank you for that question as well. So typically restitution is financial payment to a victim to make them whole. Here, the term restitution is a very odd usage. It's talking about money that's going to be paid to law enforcement. And I think you could ask some questions about whether there's an incentive we might not want for law enforcement to act a certain way in light of the fact that this would be money going straight to them. But also, I'm concerned, restitution has this special status, right? It has priority over other debts owed and things like that. So I'm concerned about whether this might have some negative interaction with actual restitution to victims. And it's also not tied to the actual cost of what it costs law enforcement. There's a minimum $250 or minimum $500 amount, regardless of whether there's any actual additional expenditures by law enforcement. So I really do think it's this twisted, I would submit, inappropriate usage of restitution.
Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I see that as well, because in making restitution to the victim, there's a lot of when the perpetrator understands that, going towards not repeating and making things right, that type of thing. But it's almost like giving law enforcement the opportunity to go for that third offense so that they can get those monies. I think it creates a serious problem, and definitely we shouldn't cloud what restitution actually is. Restitution needs to be paid to the victim of the crime. Thank you.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for being here, ma'am. Restitution versus reimbursement. I think I heard you say that this is more of a reimbursement. And if we look at the traditional restitution to victims, does this bill speak to which would have priorities?
So typically restitution has sort of foremost priority. So I don't know if somebody might potentially be torn between, paying restitution to law enforcement and a victim in this situation. I think calling both restitution, I would be concerned that, again, that it's confusing those. And I'll also note, because this involves anyone who has custody of a child when they commit an offense, it could include foster parents who are needing to pay this. It could include DCS. It could include kinship care if somebody sent their kid to live in a different neighborhood where they thought they'd do better, right? So it's pretty broad, and making it mandatory would mean a judge who just doesn't think this is right for this situation in front of them would be required to do it.
And would this include the babysitter?
That's interesting. That would be an interesting question of whether it would be considered legal custodian. I don't think so. I think it would need to be somebody who has legal custody or guardianship in a more technical legal term. But there are all sorts of situations where somebody has temporary legal custody or guardianship. So it could be, staying with grandma for a week, or, sent to live with an aunt to be in a different neighborhood, something like that.
So if there's judicial discretion, and I'm not sure why the second and third offense are in here, perhaps you can shed some light on that, or we'll take it up when we go back in. But if there's judicial discretion.
Representative Hardaway, if you hold her out there, we're out of time. Members, we're going to need to get back into session. And I hope and thank you for being here. And I'm sorry to cut short, but I've got another committee that's coming in, and we do. If you would just share, you can share your information with my office. I'll be happy to share that, your contact information with members that has any questions for you. You've been very helpful. We really appreciate your time for being here today.
Thank you.
Members, I have a motion to go back into session. Very good. All right, back in session. We're on House Bill 38. Question's been called. Members, any objection?
Objection.
Okay, I see objection. All those in favor of previous question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. We're on previous question. Question has been called. All those in favor of sending House Bill 38 to calendar and rules, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Yeah, Madam Clerk, this should be on the bill. Previous question was a voice vote. So yes, members, so we are voting on the bill. We're voting to send, whether or not send House Bill 38 to calendar and rules. All those in favor, vote aye. Opposed, vote no. Has that member voted? Anybody like to change their vote? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 9 ayes, 8 noes, and 0 present not voting.
Very good. Members, House Bill 38 is moving to calendar and rules. And that's all we have for today. All remaining bills will be moved to next week's calendars. Thank you so much.
How dare you, Representative? How dare you?